Good morning and welcome to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Well, welcome to Thursday as we wrap up another week here at Get Real America, trying to get real, and things are not getting better in the Middle East, that's for darn sure.
They certainly
Or
aren't.
down there at the border.
Yeah.
Our border, yeah, not the Ukrainian border.
Yeah. Bill, I am just always amazed that we end up in this situation where we have a slim majority. It's been decreasing, and yet still we're not able to get anything done for our side of the aisle. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Even when we had all three houses, or all three branches, it was just amazing that we couldn't get anything done, and everybody was just so nervous. Well, what will the Democrats say? I mean, what will the media do? I mean, we want to be friends with these people. You're not going to be friends with these people, okay?
Well, at the end of the day, you need to vote based off of policy positions and what the GOP stands for, not whether or not you're getting a kickback deal or not for the district. So Speaker Johnson, he's out front yesterday saying that, guess what, Biden? This border crisis, it's really on you.
Yeah, it's your fault.
I told the president, I looked right across the table from him in the cabinet officials' room, and I said, Mr. President, you have the authority right now to end this catastrophe. It's your actions that created it. In fact, Mr. President, I told him in the meeting today, we've documented 64 instances of you taking executive actions in your agencies that created this catastrophe. Mr. President, it's on you to unwind it. We don't need new laws. You could do it right now. I've cited to him, read him the legal authority on the phone on Thursday of last week that he could take. And you know what he said in the meeting, Laura? He said, we're ready to do big things on the border. Well, hallelujah, Mr. President. President Biden, do your job. Fix the catastrophe that you've created. It's an unspeakable humanitarian catastrophe.
Yeah, and what concerns me is that he said they're ready to do big things on the border.
Yeah, what does that mean?
It's very vague and almost, to me, a little bit ominous of what that could be, because
are we going to build them? Are we going to build them a housing project or something like that? What kind of big things are we talking about? And of course, there was a lady on this morning on Fox and Friends who is hopping mad. She lost her daughter, 16-year-old daughter, to an illegal alien that was beaten and raped and murdered. It was just unbelievable.
Well, and they're suing the Biden administration, which I think that's what we should be doing. All of us need to start suing for the different harms that are being caused to us. And I know that we don't all have the money for that, but we need to figure out a way to fight fire with fire. And they love lawfare. I do think that, unfortunately, when these lawsuits happen, guess who pays the bills? It's not the Biden administration. It's the taxpayer.
Always.
And so
the government doesn't have any money except what they take from the taxpayers.
Correct.
So there you go.
They don't make money. They take money.
That's right.
So Tom Holman has worked under 6 presidents under the border. And he's saying Biden is the first president to unsecure the border.
Exactly.
I started my career in immigration enforcement in 1984 as a Border Patrol agent. I've worked for 6 presidents, up to Donald Trump. Every president I've ever worked for took some steps to secure the border because they understood you can't have strong national security if you don't have border security. But President Biden is the first president in the history of this nation that I know of who came in office and unsecured the border on purpose. And even President Obama gave me the Presidential Rank Award, highest award available, because what was I doing at the time? I was locating and deporting people that are in the country illegally. So we went for the most secure border of my lifetime, and it's not just my opinion. I've done this for 34 years. Anybody can go to cbp.gov and look at the data. We handed this administration the most secure border in my lifetime. And within months, we went from the most secure border to historic illegal immigration, numbers we've never seen before. And it's not because it's seasonal. It's not because of climate change. It's not because of Trump. This is by design. We already heard about some of these people are coming because of economic reason or natural disasters. The bottom line is, when you claim asylum, you must be escaping fear and persecution from your home government because your race, religion, political affiliation, or membership in a particular social group. That is not the fact. If you look at immigration court data over the last 10 years, you'll see that nearly 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum at the border never get relief from U.S. courts that simply don't qualify. But they're coming and staying because of Biden's promises. I wrote an op-ed 6 months before the election. I said, if President Biden becomes president, we'll lose the border. based on the promises he was making during the campaign. And he's kept those promises. Right now, we have record numbers of illegal aliens coming across the border. Catch and release is rampant. Right now, Secretary Mayorkas already said 85% of everybody coming to the border is being released in the country. They're not being detained. And why are they being detained? Because of two reasons. Number one, because he knows, like I do, that vast majority of these people will be ordered removed 5, 6, 7 years down the road, maybe 10. He also knows the Homeland Security Life Cycle Report says if you get an order removal and you're in an ICE bed, you get removed 99% of the time. But if you're not in detention, your chances of being removed are slim. If you're a family unit, it's about 6%. That's why they're releasing them. Thousands of empty ICE beds sitting there right now, already paid for by the taxpayer. They'd rather release them because they know the vast majority will lose their case and they'll be ordered removed. But if they're not in detention, they won't be removed. So this administration comes up with what they call lawful pathways, which I think are illegal, and I think they'll lose when the decision of the courts come out. The CBP-1 app, 95.8% are approved. Where's the case-by-case analysis that is supposed to be done for people for a parole? It's not being done. It's a shell game. They move people, they move thousands to the port of entry so they can claim less illegal entries between the port of entries, but it's failed. Because November, December, we saw record amounts of crossings on the border, over 300,000 just in December. And people who say that the border is not in crisis, I tell you this, in 2020, the total encounters on the southwest border is 646,000. This year, 3.2 million, 5 times what we saw during last year's Trump administration. Court orders are years out, but this administration is counting on it. You overflow the system. It'll push these court dates back 7, 8 years. And what's going to happen? Mark my word. When they finally get order removal 7 years down the road, they'll have a USC child. They'll have 2 USC children. They'll get phone calls from, the director of ICE will get phone calls from the Hill saying, why'd you remove that person with 2 USC kids? Well, he didn't have 2 USC kids when he entered the country legally. So now that he has 2 USC kids, he's immune from the law. The court order means nothing. So here's what I'm looking for. If for people who demand these people have a right to claim asylum, they have a right to due process. I agree. But due process doesn't mean anything if the final decision of the courts is not executed and people aren't removed. So if it takes 5 or 6 years, they still must be removed, or the system means nothing. I've been attacked numerous times because I worked with President Trump. They said our policy is inhumane. I've been called a racist and a bigot by members of Congress. Well, let's get one thing straight. Under President Trump, illegal immigration went to a 40, 45-year low, 83% decline in illegal immigration. There's been several studies saying 31% of women that make that journey through cartels get sexually assaulted. So let me ask you a question. I'll make a point. When 83% less people are coming, how many migrants didn't die crossing the border when 83% less were coming? How many people didn't die? How many people off the terrorist screening database didn't try to come to the country? Because Border Patrol's 100% vigilant on the line and now overwhelmed. How many women and children didn't get sex trafficking to the United States? Forced into sex slavery, forced labor, debt bondage. How many billions did the criminal cartels not make? Under President Biden, where they call this humane, over 1,700 migrants have died on U.S. soil. Historic record, not counting the Darien Gap in Mexico and Central America. 112,000 Americans dying from fentanyl. Historical increase in sex trafficking, forced labor, and debt bondage. Almost 100,000 missing kids that were released by ORR. 440,000 unaccompanied children entered the country through the service of the cartels. Someone needs to explain to me how that's humane, any of this stuff. And a record number of people off the terrorist watch list being arrested. 1.9 million gotaways. That statement alone should convince anybody on either side, 1.9 million gotaways, the border is not secure. It's ridiculous to claim so.
Steve Stanton's with us this morning, and he says, guess who will be the Donald J. Trump's Director of Homeland Security?
Yeah. Tom Homan. Tom Homan gets my vote.
He has a lot of good options. I will say, I think his cabinet is going to be superior to the last one.
Yeah. The despicable media just goes beyond the pale. When they were talking about the inhumane treatment that Trump was doing, and showing and purposely misusing and lying to you, showing all those people that were in these so-called cages or prisons.
Kids in cages.
Kids in cages.
They're very good at narratives.
Yeah. And What was the real story? Those were pictures from the Obama administration. How about the Time magazine picture? A little girl who was crying to her mother, but they juxtaposed it with Donald Trump, looking like he was yelling at this little child and trying to throw him back across the border.
Yeah, these people are disgusting. And Mary McCann Hybrider's with us this morning, and she said, now they are knocking on doors asking for money. These people are now homeless in freezing temperatures. How is that helping migrants? This has to stop.
What about all the fentanyl that's come across? How many people have died from all the fentanyl that's coming across? And we are empowering the cartels.
Well, and here's the other thing, Bill. They're not even telling us that they're giving us this budget, right? They're telling us that it's going to be 33, 32, whatever, $1 trillion, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that accounts for all of the money that we're going to be spending on illegals?
No.
How is that right? These people lie through their teeth. I can't even stand how messed up our government has gotten, where they lie to the people. They force you to pay taxes for stuff that you don't agree to. I'm okay paying for roads. Are you okay paying for roads?
Yeah,
Infrastructure?
Okay. Yeah.
I think I can.
Yeah.
I think I'm fine with that. What about defense? Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with defense.
Do you have any limits on defense?
I would like to have some oversight, but I say we get the job done, and let's reimburse our resupply our arsenal.
Yeah, and for me, I really loved the sweetheart years of the Trump administration when we entered no new wars, where now I think we're in 3. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is my count correct?
And there could be another one coming.
Yeah, with Iran. Is that right?
Right, with Iran, and you know that Xi Jinping is sharpening his claws to get to Taiwan.
Oh yes, and Taiwan had the wherewithal. China threatened the people of Taiwan. If you vote this person in, it will be war. And guess what they did?
They voted him in.
They sure did. And I think that we need to take note from the Taiwanese people. They are brave. They did not care what China had to say. They were always going to vote for freedom.
Exactly.
So, I don't know. I hope Americans start to get brave, because I'm not seeing it, Bill.
Yeah. In fact, I like those folks over there, the kids that were demonstrating and all in Hong Kong 3 years ago, waving American flags, while we had these bastards over here that were burning down the rest of the country. Some like 540 different riots and fires and things of that nature.
And
none
burning
of whom
American
have been
flags.
prosecuted, by the way. The only person that was prosecuted in that whole thing was Kyle Rittenhouse, who was exercising his Second Amendment rights and protecting his life, and he was besmirched by the media.
Yeah, well, and these people are burning flags. They hate America. If you hate it so bad here, leave.
There's no out-migration quota.
Or here's the thing: if you love communism, go to California.
Yeah, perfect.
It's turned out real well there for the people, isn't it?
Sure has. Yeah.
Getting better all the time.
They tell you buy an electric car, and by the way, we're cutting back power.
Yeah. And you're not going to have power in your house. It's going to be like those rolling blackouts, but it'll be fun. But they call them brownouts.
Yeah, that's right. And you get you can get the new electric car, the Ronzoni.
No.
Yeah, Ronzoni when you push it.
I like that.
There we go. So
I like it.
There you have it.
Well,
it goes beyond the pale. And for Moscow Rachel mad cow disease the other night, saying on NBC MSDNC that we're not going to put Donald Trump in when he goes, we believe in the truth, and we don't want to. We have to live up to our standards. Oh, please, are you just kidding me?
Oh, Bill, these people, they're unbelievable. And Steve Statton Sr. says 100% are breaking the law by illegally crossing. They absolutely are. But here's the thing. Are they breaking the law when the Biden administration welcomes it and they are pushing back on Texas, who is trying to stop it and saying, you must allow these people in? It is required because we are the Biden administration and we say it's okay.
Oh, then the next lie was the 3 people that drowned.
Oh, yeah.
Or the mother and her 2 children or whatever. And they said that it was because the Texas National Guard wouldn't let the feds go in there and save them. You remember a National Guardsman who died saving, who drowned?
Yeah, very tragic. He was young too.
Yeah,
he was very young.
24 in his early to mid 20s, trying to save somebody.
But turns out they actually didn't get notice from the Mexican side of the border about this until an hour later. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
So very interesting how these narratives quickly unfold when the truth comes out. Bill, imagine that, the truth.
Yeah, and nothing gets you in trouble these days like the truth.
Sure doesn't. Funny enough, Jamie Dimon,
Mm-hmm.
no fan of MAGA or Republicans, I would say.
Right.
Coming out and sounding very much like he's a little bit more conservative than I thought.
Yeah, for sure. He's saying, knock it off with this terrorizing of people who are MAGAs.
How do you see the U.S. economy playing itself out over the next 12 months? This is an election year. We've been talking a lot about what just took place in Iowa and trying to understand how the American public is going to feel about the economy may ultimately dictate how the president is decided.
Yes, I agree with that. I think it's a mistake to assume that everything's hunky-dory. And, and when stock markets are up, it's kind of like this little drug we all feel. Like, it's just great, But remember, we've had so much fiscal and monetary stimulation. So I'm a little more on the cautious side, that we are facing a lot of things in 24 or 25. And we mentioned Ukraine, the terrorist activity in Israel, the Red Sea, quantitative tightening, which I still question if we understand exactly how that works. I don't think we do. How QE actually worked, what the effect of negative, zero rates was for all this time, and obviously the politics. And and then the Ukrainian war is affecting oil, gas, food, migration. So you have all these very powerful forces that are going to be affecting us in 24 and 25. So if I was the government, I would be preparing for what I'm going to do about that, assuming things aren't good. And I just also want to point out, I wish the Democrats would think a little more carefully when they talk about MAGA, and if you travel this country, and the country's unbelievable. We took our bus trip this year, and Leslie Picker was on Spokane and Boise and Bozeman. People are growing. They're hungry to grow. They're innovating. It's everywhere. It's not just Silicon Valley. So we've got this great hand. But when people say MAGA, they're actually looking at people voting for Trump, and they think they're voting, and they're basically scapegoating them, that you are like him. But I don't think they're voting for Trump because of his family values. Now, if you look, just take a step back, be honest. He was kind of right about NATO, kind of right about immigration. Mm-hmm. He grew the economy quite well.
China virus.
Tax reform worked. Yeah. He was right about some of China. I don't like what he did.
No, I said China virus.
Yeah, I understand. He may have been right. And I don't like how he said things about Mexico. I don't like, but he wasn't wrong about some of these critical issues, and that's why they're voting for him. And I think people should be a little more respectful of our fellow citizens. And when you guys have people up here, you should always ask the why. Not like it's a binary thing. You're supporting Trump, you're not supporting Trump. Why are you supporting Trump?
It's hard to hate 75 million of your fellow Americans. And
I agree.
It's done crazy.
And, the Democrats have done a pretty good job with the deplorables, hugging onto their Bibles and their beer and their guns. I mean, really? Could we just stop that stuff and actually grow up and treat other people with respect and listen to them a little bit? And I do think the economy will affect. And I think this negative talk about MAGA is going to hurt Biden's election campaign.
Bless his heart.
Pretty shocking to hear him say that, I would say.
And did you notice they were all like agreeing? These people that have been shoving this down our throat from the NBC side.
But they also tried to jump in. Well, he said China virus.
Like, well, so what? That's because one reporter had asked him about that one time. Remember, why are you calling it the Chinese virus? Because it came from China.
I will say that I saw this big billboard that said, "I just missed the way he said China."
Yeah,
it was funny.
Why did we call it 100 years ago? Why did we call it the Spanish flu? Wasn't from Spain.
I don't know.
Why was it called the Spanish flu? I don't know.
But
nobody was saying, you're a racist against Spain.
It's interesting how that works. Times have changed. Times have changed.
Yeah.
Steve Satin Sr. Says even in advanced stages of dementia, he cannot ignore the law or rewrite it. I think that this is a huge issue with executive orders. I am not a fan of executive orders because basically the policy changes every time it switches parties.
Exactly.
And so you have these big swings and these big shifts in policy here. And the only people that it hurts is, guess who? Mm-hmm. Americans like us.
That's right.
Those are the only people it hurts. Mary McCann Hybrider says, but the DOJ now is looking into banking records for any transaction noted MAGA or Trump. What country is this? This is Joe Biden's America, and I hope you, at every opportunity that you get, that you tell people that, because this is crazy, Bill. Absolutely crazy that we've allowed this to happen. And it's amazing that political class is not protected, which now we're looking at it, and it probably should be.
Agreed.
Steve Satin Sr., the Bible says, lay hands on no man suddenly. Jamie is a member of the WEF, And Mary McCann-Heiber commented to that and says, apparently our governor is also a WEF member. This is the second year in a row that Kemp has been there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, for sure.
We'll see what that's all about. Hopefully when he gets back, he'll have some answers for us of what he accomplished while he was there.
Exactly. Meanwhile, it's time to find out what's going on in the skies and on the ground. Jay Ratliff, aviation analyst, is coming up next. Do you want to make sure that there are less white people in aviation? We'll talk about that too.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is, fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
Foxy Loxy, Coffee Fox, and Henny Penny, making life better for Savannahans with their kolaches, tacos, coffees. They're just amazing. Buy local and keep the torch lit. All right. Welcome back to Get Real America. It's a pleasure to be talking with our good buddy Jay Ratliff, aviation analyst and expert, and find out what's going on in the industry, on the ground, in the sky. And Jay, I'm learning how to fly now, and I know I'm going to be a great pilot because I'm Googling it.
You're good to go, right? So,
yeah.
I don't know. We're at a stage right now where they're obviously looking for as many pilots as they can, but you know, aviation is starting to slow down just a bit. Some of the pent-up demand for travel that was taking place after the pandemic has kind of stemmed off a bit, and we're returning more towards the historical normal patterns of, you know, January soft, February's a little soft, but it increases as we go into the spring break time, giving us a good March and April. May is soft, and then June, July, and August, gangbusters, falling off in September. That hasn't been the case in the last couple of years, and airlines have really been maximizing their profits as a result. Now that we're seeing the future demand for travel dropping off just a bit, thank you, Joe Biden, and our slowing economy, I think that has a lot to do with the fact that, you know, people aren't traveling as much as they once were.
Jade, is it, you know, one of the things that we talked about during the pandemic, they were worried about when it started coming back, they were worried if the business traveler was going to be coming back. Have we seen any movement along those lines?
Some. I mean, I get a Castle report, Kastle. It's a great service that provides a weekly snapshot of the businesses in the country, where they take a sample of coast to coast of the number of people who are swiping in coming into work. And I got one just this morning, and it showed 48% of the normal people have swiped in. Now, that's been about the norm for a while, and it reflects the fact that more and more people are working from home. You have fewer people that are traveling for business, and airlines are finally acknowledging that fact. A lot of the CEOs kept saying, oh, no, we've got more corporate travelers than ever. If you're not traveling for business, you're losing out because your competition is blah, blah, blah. And of course, I'm on the sidelines thinking, what a load of crap. You're just saying that because you're trying to get people out of their office into traveling. And we know that's not the case. And, you know, more and more people are recognizing that, look, corporate travel's off by some airlines by 30, 40, even 50% more. And as a result, airlines are trying to figure out, okay, if that's going to be the new norm, a term I still don't like, but it certainly applies, what do we have to look forward to? And I tell you what, this year, airlines are looking forward to the return of international travel. They can make more money as far as a yield, profit per flight from an international ticket than they can a domestic ticket. And Bill, we're seeing airlines pack their schedules with a lot of international routes, even offering some pretty decent deals for people that are out there that want to travel internationally, maybe for the first time in years. We're seeing the interest in international travel return. And as a result, airlines are hoping that that's going to kind of help bridge the gap between the money that they're losing from the corporate side, in addition to the, the softness that we're seeing right now in some of the leisure travel.
Yeah. Jay, what about this situation where we got JetBlue and Spirit that we're trying to merge, and it looks like it's going to be a no-go?
Yeah, you and I started talking about this, way back when, and we said early on it was all about JetBlue acquiring Spirit, and the concern from the government was the impact on the consumer. And that's why we saw a lot of resistance from the Biden administration on this, because they said, look, there's going to be a lot of overlapping cities, which means if these two airlines combine, the number of flights to these cities is going to reduce, the number of available seats is going to be reduced, and that's going to lead to higher fares, neither of which serves the consumer. And I've got to tell you, I am such a non-Biden fan, but I do appreciate the fact the Department of Justice has stepped in and said, look, acting on behalf of the Biden administration, this is a merger that we are not in favor of, and that's why it went to court, and a judge finally ruled that the merger should not go through. Now, look, the airlines could both appeal, Spirit and JetBlue, but I really would like us to return to the scenario as it was before of Frontier merging with Spirit. You remember I told you long ago when that first surfaced, I said, I really like this because when you overlap the route maps of Spirit and Frontier, there's very few cities that overlap. It would benefit both consumers as far as the frequent flyers for both airlines. And certainly, I think it would have a better chance at being approved. So we still don't know what's going to happen. I do know this morning there's a lot of articles that are out about Spirit needing that merger with JetBlue and saying that they may have to file for bankruptcy, Chapter 11. Now, not cease to fly, but just go through what a lot of airlines have had to go through, Chapter 11, which, from our side of the counter, we don't know the difference, but they may need to do that. So I don't know if Frontier is going to enter back into the picture or not. They probably could do so at a reduced price of what they were offering before, because right now Spirit is desperate, and we're going to have to wait and see what happened. Yesterday, Spirit stock, which is SAVE, on the news just after 1 o'clock, dropped like 63%.
Good Lord.
You had a stock that went from $15.65 down to under $6 a share, because investors recognized, absent this merger, this acquisition by JetBlue, that airline's going to have a hard time surviving. So that's one of the reasons we could see Frontier come back in. So again, a lot of moving parts here. It's still relatively new news, breaking, so to speak. So as a result, we'll see where it goes.
Well, how does that affect the merger ideas or talks between Hawaii Air and Alaska? It seems like
that's a great question, because the thought is, okay, now wait a minute, if the Spirit JetBlue merger is not allowed, is the government going to step in here? Well, if the issue on the impact of the consumer is still the driving force here, we look at the two airlines, Hawaiian Air and Alaska. Bill, they have very few overlapping routes. So that tells me that it would be good for both the Alaska airline frequent flyer as well as the Hawaiian Air frequent flyer, and the two route maps would complement each other. And that tells me there's a pretty good chance, if everything remains the same, that it could be approved. Now, look, when it happens, there's going to be a reduction in seats. I don't care what anybody tells you. When you have two airlines and they're combined, you're going to have some routes that overlap. And if the two airlines have 6 flights a day going from city A to city B, as one airline, they're not going to operate 6 flights a day. It'll probably be 3 or 4. So when you see that, that means the existing flights will operate with fares higher than before. So there's a lot of things to look at here to see if it's in the best interest of the consumer. Personally, I think it's a good deal, and I hope it continues.
Yeah, it's interesting that we have all of these mergers that they're talking about, and I've never heard any. Spirit doesn't usually make the headlines with any good news these days.
Yeah, no, but here's the thing, and I used to get some really bad emails from the Spirit PR department because I'd go on the air nationally talking about them, and oh man, they would come out of the woodworks after me. But the thought was that, look, they have fun, and they've really turned things around of late. Other than financially, they've been struggling a bit. But I mean, they'll take their bad customer service headlines and they'll turn it into a fair. It's like, and it was. I remember when we had a politician that was taking pictures of himself, sending them via text.
Yeah,
that's when Spirit Airlines decided that they would have a hot dog sale. They called a wiener sale. And they were capitalizing on the headlines of the day, but they were just having fun in kind of a, edgy way, but you kind of love it because if it's them they're making fun of or other people, I'm sorry, I'm the kind of sick individual that just absolutely loves that. And that's one of the reasons that I really pull for Spirit, because they've got a lot of passengers that, are loyal to them. You're not going to get any customer service. You're paying for basic transportation. If you get any good customer service, go buy a lottery ticket that day because you're having a really good day. But people recognize that you get what you pay for, and they've got some incredibly low fares. And look, I would love to have in Cincinnati, which is where one of our homes are at. I'd love to have Spirit in Cincinnati. There's a lot of low-cost carriers there. We don't have Spirit. I'd love to have them because anytime that you can welcome that kind of an airline to a market, it's going to reduce the overall fares because of who they are and what they do. So, yeah, even though Spirit Airlines may not like me, and I'm okay with that, I really like them a lot.
Very good. Jay, one of the things that has been amusing to me is that when I was traveling with United, I think one of the things that I said was, there are too many white people running this operation. I sure hope they get more diversity.
Yes. Well, and they've done it. I think United has really, kind of led the charge in that. One of the things they did a number of years ago said, we're going to hire pilots, more of them, and we're going to have X percentage of them being women. Now, I've never liked the idea. I love the first part of the statement. We recognize there's a shortage of women professional pilots. We want more. Totally applaud that. I'm on my chair applauding. But when they say this is the percentage, that means, excuse me, time out. So that means if you've got a man and a woman, maybe the man's more qualified, but you're not quite at your quota for women pilots. You're going to go with the less experienced woman pilot over the man pilot. That's where you blow the whistle, time out, got to stop, can't do that. But sadly, and you and I both know this because we've been around for more than a day or two, that's how corporate America works. That's what the FAA is doing right now when they're talking about hiring people in the air traffic controllers or, within the FAA that are, I mean, I can't even begin to talk about what the wording on their website says. This: we are actively recruiting workers who suffer from severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and or other mental and physical conditions. Now, excuse me for saying this, but I want the best pilots possible.
Yeah.
I want the best mechanics and flight attendants. I want the best air traffic controllers.
Yeah.
I don't care about the physical disabilities because so many people work past that. That's great. But you're going to give me somebody with psychiatric problems? No. In fact, years ago, the FAA said, we need to be more diverse. It's too hard for people to become air traffic controllers. So we're going to lower the bar considerably to allow almost anybody that breathes to walk in the door and be qualified to serve as an air traffic controller. I'm in the back of the room losing my mind thinking, what are you doing? Fast forward a year or two, now here we are. We're seeing more near misses at airports than ever before. Now, is there a correlation? I don't know. I know they're looking into it, but I know that cause and effect being what it is, if you bring in people with maybe not quite the mental strength or capabilities to do the job. And all of a sudden you see airplanes that are on top of each other. Wait a minute, there might be a reason for that. And that's something that, maybe down the road, we'll see if that's the case. I know why they do it. It never has ever made sense to me, because when you lower the bar like that in an institution where lives are at stake, you are introducing a safety issue that unfortunately could rear its ugly head at any moment.
I remember the posters that the Marines used to advertise when all the other services were trying to recruit just about anybody. And there's this DI in the face of some young buck private, and it said, "We don't promise you a rose garden."
Oh yeah, it's called life.
Yeah.
So it's like, it may not be fair. You may not be treated like the person next to you. You may feel like you're being picked on. Guess what? That's life. That's what we teach our kids. Mm-hmm. Life isn't fair. You can work hard. It does not guarantee success. It guarantees a chance for opportunities, and that's it. My youngest daughter turned 34 today, and I have 2 daughters and 2 sons, and my daughters are ICU nurses. And I've told them from day one, look, life is going to be tough. You're going to have to work your butt off, and it's not always going to be fair. You're going to have to work for everything that you've got, appreciate it along the way, and make the most out of every opportunity that you've got, and never be afraid about going after challenges that are bigger than you. And unfortunately, so many times with the 43-year-old still living at home with his mom in the basement, there's a little bit of this sheltered, existence that's there where people feel like everything has to be fair. I'm sorry, young man, get your butt out of the basement, out of your mom's house, live on your own, accept the responsibilities, and try to make a difference in the life that you've been given.
Mm-hmm. Well, it just drove it home to me when last week I heard about this pilot that was trying to land and was told to do some maneuver. He told the ATC that he'd never heard of that before in his 17 years as a pilot. And she said it was okay because she Googled it, so it was the right thing to do. And he said, we need to have a discussion about this when I land.
I Googled it. I'm just, yeah, well, you know that I'm going to get emails that you and I are making this stuff up, right?
I know.
I get all the time where people are like, Jay, understand the
up.
entertainment value, but stop making things up. We're not
the
making
Babylon
things
Bee here.
up. It's just, you think this is made up stuff, but sadly it's not. And
I'd like to have known what happened in that conversation.
Well, you asked me for a good story of the week. You just gave me the one. I mean, that's the one that would top everything, because it fits right in with the idea of, hey, we'll hire anybody, come on in, because if you can Google it, we can do it.
Sure. Well, Jay, stay safe and safe travels. We'll talk again next week. Thank you, pal.
I cannot tell you how much I enjoy our time together, brother. Thank you.
Likewise. God bless. See you soon.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance, with integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
Scary that it can be put into anything. We can't even see it or notice it.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, The mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
Foxy Loxy, Coffee Fox, and Henny Penny, making life better for Savannahans with their kolaches, tacos, coffees. They're just amazing. Buy local and keep the torch lit.
Welcome back. Well, welcome back to Get Real America.
Yeah, glad to have you with us here on this Thursday morning. What Jay was saying just a moment ago is so bizarre and so terrifying. The monumental stupidity, as we discussed this yesterday, if you are in charge of packing parachutes in the military, every once in a while they come in and they look at all the people who you signed off on this. Yeah, let's go jump. And just hand them, just grab a parachute at random off the wall and hand it to them and say, we're going to jump. Now, if you have done your job, you don't worry about this thing unfolding properly when you pull the cord. If you haven't done your job, the sweat should break out right away.
Yeah, if you're not really confident, I'm sure that you are sweating bullets.
Yeah, absolutely. So why would you have somebody, why would you want to hire somebody just because they have a pulse and because they fit into some racial category that somehow society has decided that this is a good thing, this is what we need for balance or something along those lines. If you were being wheeled into an operating room, and I've used this analogy on numerous occasions, and I mean, it's like this operation needs to be done immediately, if not sooner. And all the operating team is standing around, and you say, well, why aren't they starting the operation? So, well, the Hispanic anesthetist is not here yet. So what about the white anesthetist? Well, they're white.
We don't have the right makeup to start the surgery. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right. So
we don't have the right.
We've got to have we've got to have a diverse group. So go out and get an orderly to come in and do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot of people that would say I absolutely am willing to wait until we have the right diversity in this equation for me to move forward with a surgery that is probably going to save my life. I don't know a lot of people that would choose that.
Not the best idea they ever had.
No. Well,
so you're going to put somebody in the cockpit, or you're going to put somebody on the plane that doesn't know what the hell they're doing. Or in air traffic control. Yeah, air traffic control. What if you got a navigator that doesn't know how to use a compass?
Sounds dangerous.
Yeah, it really does.
Sounds real dangerous. It makes me a little nervous to fly these days.
Yeah, really.
So will not be flying American Airlines. Their CEO, man, he's something else, Bill.
Yeah.
How is diversity and diversity targets working into the Aviate Academy?
We have committed that 50% of the class of the classes will be women or people of color. Today, only 19% of our pilots at United Airlines are women or people of color. And by the way, from all the data I've seen, that's the highest of any airline in the country.
White males don't just dominate in the cockpits, also in the C-suite at United Airlines.
Well, look, at United, I'm proud of the diversity that we actually have in our C-suite. I think if you look around corporate America.
Correct me if I'm saying, though, so this was just based off your website, the people you list as executives, but out of 11 people, 3 are women. I believe 1 is a person of color.
That's correct. But, in corporate America, I think,
That's a low bar. How do you raise your own bar?
Well, a lot of this is, focusing on it. We have programs one of the things we do is for every job when we're doing an interview, we require women and people of color to be involved in the interview process, bringing people in early in their careers as well, and giving them those opportunities and creating a strong.
I feel like he just said a lot of words there that really meant nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the interesting thing is that we want 50% of the makeup to be, let's take Black Americans, right? Mm-hmm. They're 13% of the population. How can they make up 50% of these roles in every single category? Can you explain that to me? The math doesn't seem to be there.
Yeah, it's the new math.
Oh,
Yeah.
like girl math.
The metric system. Yeah,
girl math,
whatever it is.
boy math,
Yeah.
dog math.
Whatever it is. So 19% of his pilots are minorities or
Minorities or women.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's more than that's more than equitable. Consider if 13% of the population is black and you got 19% in the cockpit that's a person of color or a woman or both, which checks 2 boxes, so you don't have to worry about that.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, Bill. I think that the way that they're forcing this down our throats, I think is going to put everyone in danger, especially in the airline industry, an industry that is already very much struggling for qualified people in all of those roles.
Exactly.
And very disappointing to see CEOs become woke, and they're going to ruin these companies too. I think that that's the other thing. One lawsuit could destroy all of these airlines.
And it's just amazing that we have these people that don't seem to care about your safety. So my suggestion is that as soon as they hire some of these people and put them in the plane, that we get the CEO and his staff to take a flight.
Yes. Well, also I think
see how it's going.
Well, I do think that we have every right to ask, okay, who is flying the plane? I want to know the credentials on the 2 pilots. I want to know how long they've been flying and if they've ever had any sort of issues.
Apropos nothing, but it reminds me of it. I think Pam and I were flying out. We were going to the Grand Canyon a few years back, and of course, the first flight, you have to go to Atlanta because if you're going to heaven or hell, you have to change planes in Atlanta.
Yeah, I know.
But the two pilots come walking up, and they look like they're in high school. And there was this black lady, looked like she was in her mid-60s, kind of a black grandma, your typical black grandmother, jumps up like she sat on a spear and goes running over to these 2 guys as they're getting ready to get on the plane and grabs us. How old are you? I think the pilot said he was 36 and the navigator said he was 28 or something.
But you also want to, I kind of like that 30 age range because they're young enough. They still have good eyesight, all of the things.
Yeah, best reaction time, the whole bit.
Yeah, so I but I also don't want, I want qualified people. That's what I care about.
How do you suppose some of those people would have done with the flight that Sully Sullenberger landed the plane on and the Miracle on the Hudson? Because of his experience, not only as a fighter pilot, but he was also a glider pilot. And he'd had all those years in the cockpit and all those years of knowing how to put a plane in the right trajectory and everything else, and landed that thing. It was perfect. It could have hit wrong. This thing could have started catapulting, coming apart, and everybody could have died, or at least half of the people could have died, and nobody was hurt.
Yeah, experience matters.
Yeah, it really
definitely does. And Steve Stanton says, MDGA, make Delta great again. I will say we haven't heard as much about Delta having these issues. That is my airline of preference, if I'm being honest. But I don't think that they're exempt from it. I do think that they have a woke CEO as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how all these great American companies have now switched to non-American CEOs. How do you feel about that?
Terrible.
Yeah, me too.
When I found out that the Coca-Cola CEO was some weirdo in the UK, our Atlanta-based, the greatest and most popular drink in the history of the world, and we got this sub-moron over in the UK someplace. It's disgusting. And I believe the Delta CEO did call Boeing and ask him if they could start building the planes with 2 left wings.
Oh.
So I think that was one of his accomplishments.
Yeah, I'm over the wokeness for sure. And Steve Stanton Sr. says, "Oh, they went woke years ago."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that we just didn't realize it, and then I think 2020 really put a spotlight on everything. Because everyone felt like they needed to comment on politics. I think that that's the thing that got most people in trouble.
Yeah. And by the way, as much as I like him, I went to school with his dad, and I was big admirer of him, even though he did go to University of Tennessee. Was Peyton Manning now teaming up as another big athlete? They don't need the money, but have started teaming up to do Bud Light commercials. Sorry, I'm sorry, Peyton. that ain't the way to go. You don't need the money. All right.
Well, and Bud Light is doing a lot to try and bring that brand back. And there's two ways you can look at it. Bud Light made a very bad decision. Very bad. But who else is sponsoring? Who else is Bud Light sponsoring? Fighters.
Yeah.
And I will tell you what, these fighters, yesterday, I didn't pull the clip because there's a lot of F words in it. These people, the men are aggressive that fight. They punch people in the face for a living. I mean, come on. Yeah. But he basically talks to this reporter and says, he goes after him and he's like, "Oh, are you a man? Or would you allow if your child was gay, would you be okay with it?" And he's like, "No." And he's like, "See, that's the problem with you. You're not a man. You don't." And I mean, and Bud Light is sponsoring these people to say mean things about these reporters and about being woke because people are over it. And I think it's kind of a win when you think about Bud Light sponsoring someone like Dylan Mulvaney and now going to these fighters who are very aggressive. And one of them actually always says, "Paid for by Bud Light." My message is sponsored by Bud Light. And he has no fear of saying what he wants to say.
Right.
So there's two ways to look at this, but here's the other thing. If we don't start taking the win, Bud Light is going to see no reason to continue down the path of trying to win back people buying their product. And they will just continue to sponsor gay pride parades.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they will find a market. And so that's just something to think about. I'm not pro Bud Light by any stretch of the imagination, but I just think that there's some interesting things that you can look at to see. We need to take the wins. That's one thing that we're not good at. But I will say Bud Light was the most successul thing that any conservative's done in the last 2 decades.
Without a doubt, yeah.
We're not good at boycotting things.
No, you're not. In fact, we're kind of anti-boycott. When we were talking about the fact that we get to say what we want to say here, we're not. And when I was railing against Rachel Mad Cow disease a while ago, I'm not saying that they should fire her or anything else. Keep her on. She's certainly earning that $25 or $35 million that they're paying her to lie and help destroy the country.
The funny thing is they don't even have the ratings to justify paying her that.
Oh, they don't.
I think that that's also an interesting concept. But I think this is where a meritocracy is lost, Bill. You're not paid for how good you are. You're paid for what propaganda you're willing to spew when it comes to media. And then when it comes to, I don't know, pilots, it's based off your skin color, what check mark you provide that company. I think that's gross. I think that I just don't know how we got here so quickly. It feels quick to me.
Well, it wasn't. It was very sub rosa. And for years, I heard journalists talking about when I'd see these reports that were way off to the left. And we get this excuse, well, we're liberals, but we know how to, but we can, when it comes to our profession and news, we're very balanced. We're straight down the middle. We don't show any prejudice one way or the other. Oh, please. I got an old bridge here I want to sell you if you buy that line. But now they're not even hiding it anymore because they feel like they are in the majority, and in media they are. And it's interesting how if you're a Democrat politician, once you leave, you become a journalist. It's amazing.
Or a lobbyist.
A lobbyist or a journalist. Jake Tapper, George stuffing envelopes.
Yeah, great pathways for people.
Yeah, for sure. Meanwhile, we got a great former congressman from Georgia, Doug Collins, who has a podcast now, and I hope he runs for Senate again or something, or runs again for Congress.
He's been very quiet.
But he has a podcast now. But he's been on. He was on Fox and Friends first the day before yesterday, discussing his take on the 9/11 call of growing concerns around the Iranian nuclear program, and this is what he had to say.
Lloyd Austin's secret hospitalization has just been released. It was made by one of Austin's aides who asked first responders to be discreet when arriving at the defense secretary's home. Take a listen.
Fairfax County 911, where is your emergency?
Yes, ma'am. So my name is, and I work for, and I'm requesting an ambulance to be taken. Can I ask, but can the ambulance not show up with lights and sirens? We're trying to remain a little subtle.
The defense secretary spent 2 weeks in the hospital where he was reportedly treated for complications from a surgery for prostate cancer. He was released on Monday and will now be working from home. Let's bring in Doug Collins, an Iraq War veteran, former Georgia congressman, and the host of the Doug Collins podcast. Doug, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning.
A lot to get to this morning, but let's start with Lloyd Austin. There have been 137 attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria, 24 while Lloyd Austin was in the hospital. So with that, what do you think?
Well, it's very concerning because you have a Secretary of Defense, and you just heard from that. What was really interesting to me is why did they redact his name? You know, I can understand maybe redacting the aide's name, but they're redacting the Secretary of Defense. We know it's the Secretary of Defense. This just continues a cover-up in many ways that makes the American people not concerned, not sure that Lloyd Austin's actually in control at the Pentagon. And when you have this kind of stuff going on, we just had the 2 Navy SEALs, which is, you know, lost at sea means we're not getting them back. And this is just puts a real human face on the fact that we have many service members in the Middle East right now in harm's way. And our Secretary of Defense, you know, I want him to get better, but I want him to step back and let somebody do the job he can't do.
Can I just ask about the 2 Navy SEALs that were lost at sea? You don't often hear about this. You also don't often get details of Navy SEAL missions.
Yes.
What do you think about the situation? What does that mean?
Yeah, I would love to see more information come out, but from what's coming out now, that Central Command has said that they were, you know, undoubtedly swept away. It was undoubtedly in a mission to intercept, as they said, and something went wrong. It went terribly wrong, and right now my heart just goes out to the families of those members right now who are having to go through this process. And as someone still in the military, this is the part, and I'm a chaplain, this is the part that you dread the most. But again, I can't emphasize this. This administration seems to be having a hands-off approach to when we are attacked. This is real consequences, and we're one bad missile strike or one bad situation away from losing more service members. When are we going to actually start pushing back against these folks?
We need to hear from the administration with an explanation as to this, because Navy SEALs just don't fall overboard and die. Second, we need to hear from Lloyd Austin. He has a duty to address the American people on this. Meantime, while we've been sitting here, some breaking news just into the newsroom. Secretary Blinken just addressing the Iran nuclear agreement minutes ago in Davos, saying, I think it was a big mistake to tear up the Iran nuclear agreement. We had Iran's nuclear program in a box. Since the agreement was torn up, it's escaped from that box. And we're now at a place where we didn't want to be because we don't have that agreement. In a box, Doug?
No, I think Secretary Blinken's a big mistake. And I think this is the problem that we're seeing across the world with our standing. Look, let's go back to the understanding what happened when they signed this agreement to start with. It was never put forward by the Obama administration that they were going to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, which was I voted against this. It should have never happened, because all they said was, well, we're going to slow the centrifuges down. No, you're not. You're just simply going to allow them to get a nuclear weapon, and you're going to give them money. And since then, when Trump came in and tore that up, the only thing that Iran responds to is pressure. The only thing that Iran responds to is being put in a box where they can't have resources, they can't have the things to make sure that their regime keeps the Iranian people in check, because that's how a dictatorship works. And they need the money. When Biden came in, he tore up the agreement. I mean, he came up and said, we're going to actually now start giving them money. We're going to cut back our energy production so they get more money from oil. And right now they have the money to fund every terrorist group in the world, and that's exactly what you're seeing. This is sad.
Well, here's a statement you never want to hear from David Albright, who's a former UN weapons inspector. He said today Iran would need only about a week to produce its first nuclear weapon. It could have enough weapons-grade uranium for 6 weapons in a month, and after 5 months of producing weapons-grade uranium, it could have enough for 12. Iran nuclear agreement or not, I mean, that's in the past, but now moving forward, it does look like Iran is going to be a nuclear state at some point. Is that an inevitable statement, or how do we prevent that from taking place?
Well, it's been inevitable until this administration, the previous administration's policies said it was going to be inevitable. And I think that's the thing that we have to look at. The Obama administration, remember, when this was put in, there was no talk of we're going to go in there and shut down this program. It was always talk of we're going to work with them, we're going to monitor them, we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that it's a long time off.
And give them a ton of money in the process.
Again, it was just amazing to me to do that. But here, look at it. Not just the regular conventional nuclear weapons. Think about what could be done apart from just taking what we call a dirty bomb or those kinds. And you have it put into a suitcase in Tel Aviv. You have it put into a suitcase in Munich. These are the kind of things, because they're funding terrorist folks out there. If you're not concerned about this, terrorists are a problem, and Iran is funding them.
Well, really quickly, we are learning that the Biden administration is expected to redesignate the Houthis as a terror organization.
About time.
I am assuming that sanctions will be a part of that deal.
Yeah, but if the sanctions
What
aren't
does that
applied,
do?
yeah, if the sanctions aren't applied to Iran, who is actually the person they get their money from, it's not going to matter.
Rhetorical question. Why were they taken off in the first place? We don't even need an answer from that. We know what the answer is.
Doug, thank you so much for joining
It's always
us.
good to be with you.
Good guy. Really good guy.
Yes, and Lizzie Warren says Austin's too selfish to do the right thing for the country.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Stanton Sr. says Doug Collins for Secretary of Defense under Trump or Attorney General.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And then,
like Doug a lot. In fact, I was with when he was a Fox News contributor. I saw him on Fox one day, and then the next day I'm walking downtown, walk around the corner at one of the hotels, and he and his wife are sitting in a rocking chair in front of it, and I look around. Congressman Collins? He was still in Congress at the time. And I had my little recorder with me. I said, can I do an interview with him? Oh, sure. He gave me 20 minutes.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Seems like a really nice guy.
Very nice.
Lizzie Warren says Biden made Iran nuclear. He owns any consequences. It's
Boy,
amazing all the narratives that we've heard for so many years.
Uh-huh.
And then when you look at the consequences for doing things that they lie to you about, they are catastrophic.
We need more conspiracy theories because the old ones are coming to fruition. All right. That's going to do it for us for this week. We'll see you again next week, and try to stay real.
Have a good weekend.
God bless.
This campaign really leverages